Hello, and welcome to We the Students, a political discussion sponsored by Nauset Regional High School's AP U.S. Government and Politics program in collaboration with Nauset's video production class. Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals, more commonly referred to as DACA, is a U.S. immigration program with an uncertain future. President Trump announced last year that he would no longer extend the program created through executive order by President Obama. President Trump demanded that Congress find a permanent legislative solution to DACA, which allows certain immigrants brought here to the United States illegally as children to remain here. The courts recently stepped in to allow DACA to continue to run, at least for now. Our question is, should DACA immigrants be allowed to stay in the United States? That will be our topic of discussion over the next 30 minutes. I am your host, Dylan McCarthy, a junior here at Nauset and a veteran of the AP government program. Just for the record, opinions expressed here belong to the panelists and are not the views of Nauset Regional High School or the Nauset Regional School District. At the bottom of your screen, you will see a special email address for our panel today. Please feel free to email us your thoughts and suggestions about today's topic so we can continue this discussion in our government classroom. Now let's meet our panel. To my left, representing DACA, we have Evie, Caitlin, and Chloe. To my right, against DACA, we have Emily, Mia, and Bailey. So let's just jump right into it with a question. Is it in the best interest for the United States to deport DACA-protected individuals to foreign countries?
We think that it is not in the best interest of America because not only does it hurt our economy, but it makes it unfair for the people, the American citizens, and the people who are trying to come here legally and following the rules.
And I do understand where you're coming from on that point, but most of the DACA recipients currently were brought into the United States when they were really young and didn't even have a say in whether they could actually come into the United States legally.
That's true, that they came in when they were under 16 years old, but now the average age of DACA recipients is 25, so they're adults now, and they are not children anymore.
And also, these people were, before DACA was enacted in 2012, these people were living here illegally as adults for, many of them, 10 plus years.
Well, you do have to be 31 years old or younger to apply for DACA. So many of the people who have applied for DACA and have been granted DACA status after 2012 when DACA was enacted, they are still very young. They're not generally older than about 37. So they did come here where they were very young and they haven't been living in the country for their entire lives at all.
And actually, more than 2/3 of DACA recipients are under the age of 25, according to the Pew Research Center.
I understand that, but if you've been, to apply for DACA, you have to be between the ages of 15 and 31 as of 2012, and you had to have been here in 2007 under the age of 16. You had to come here before the age of 16. So most of the people are above 18, which means you're an adult. So DACA is a deferred action for childhood arrivals, and although they were children when they arrived, they're not children anymore. So they should be able to try and get a green card or apply for citizenship just as all the other legal people have.
However, DACA doesn't make you exempt from immigration. It's merely deferred action, which is a temporary hold on immigration. People who receive DACA, who have applied for DACA and have been granted the status of deferred action, they have 2 years to get a green card, to get a visa, to get a work permit, to establish themselves in the U.S.
And most of them, they keep renewing it, so it's just allowing them to illegally stay in the country when it's hurting our economy and hurting the people who are trying to come in here legally.
Yes, of those people, I think it was only 40,000 people got green cards through DACA. So how is
they're
it?
not at risk.
It's
However,
not a legal path to citizenship.
It can take up to 12 years to become a citizen in the U.S. The process is hard.
And it's expensive.
And it's very expensive, and many of these people do not have the resources to apply for citizenship and to be granted citizenship.
They should do that like the rest of the people who are outside the U.S. waiting to come in, not staying here while they try to do that. They need to go back home and try to deal with that on their own.
Well, many of the people, or almost all of the people who are applying to DACA, they've lived in the country that they were born in for just a few years. Like the average age of arrival for DACA is 6.5 years old, and so they're very foreign in that country where they were born in, and they feel more at home in the United States. And DACA is not it's not just you email DACA and you get you don't immediately get DACA. It's a very long process, and you have to have an education, and you can't be convicted of any felony or misdemeanor. So it's very selective, and so
when they're ending DACA, it's not like they're being sent home in the next week, in the next day, not even probably within the next 6 months. So they're gonna have time to find a way to survive at home. They did that when they came here. Most of them probably didn't have any connections when they came to America. Maybe they did. Maybe that's how they got in. But it's just they're not going to be thrown
because
right back in.
they were children when they were brought here, so they had a connection. They were brought here by their parents.
Their parents were able to come in illegally, and make a way being illegal, probably not being able to work. They're going to be able to survive. It's not going to be that hard for them to go back home.
And if you think about it, you're saying, well, what about these poor children who are here and they have nowhere else to go because they've lived here their whole life? Well, what about those children who are waiting to come in, and they have been waiting for years and years and years, and they see all of these children or adults now that are able to stay in this country without paying the money that they have. It costs thousands of dollars to get lawyers, to get citizenship.
But it also costs thousands of dollars to apply for
$500.
It costs
about $500
every 2 years.
But what about the thousands of dollars that are paid for lawyers?
And the other thing is, a lot of DACA recipients are supporting their immigrant families who came here and had literally nothing. So to say that
why should they be
this?
benefiting from our economy when they're supporting their
because
their illegal family?
They are not just sitting back.
They are illegal immigrants.
They are doing work. They might not be legal
most of
work,
the
but they're helping.
Most of them who only have a high school education or a GED, so they're taking away the lower level jobs from the Americans who are. They are making it harder for Americans to get those lower level jobs and bringing down the level of pay and conditions of work.
However, DACA members are the age of productive members of society. Actually, deporting DACA participants would be a $460 billion blow to the U.S. gross domestic product because these people are of working age. They are not retirees. They come here to get a job. They live here and work, and they
and under
what about the Americans?
There are not a fixed number of jobs in our economy.
And the other thing is, under DACA, these recipients are residing here legally, temporarily under the program, and when they start to work legally with a permit, they start to pay taxes, and that tax money goes back into the U.S. economy.
But if they got deported, it would not be a dead weight loss out of America.
Because
other people would get those jobs. Other people would
but the general amount of jobs, the general people that are willing to work and to get jobs in America would go down.
You may say that DACA they take the jobs that are undesirable, that people don't want, but they're taking jobs from Americans because although DACA, a lot of them they get paid less than what's legal for an American, so they're taking those jobs away. Because why would you hire someone who has to be paid minimum wage, an American citizen, when you are paying someone illegally less money?
And the lowest,
Oh, no, you can go on.
The lowest economic scale at that minimum wage level, these people are living a starving wage, and they have families to support Americans, and that wage has decreased by 20% in the last 25 years because of the DACA immigrants.
And actually, also about 50% of the immigrants, most of them who are on DACA, so they're legally allowed to work, they are on some type of welfare program. So even though they're working, they're still getting government aid, taking away from Americans, and so compared to the 18% of Americans who are on welfare.
I think Dylan.
Well, that sort of leads us to a new question. Do you believe that that DACA protected individuals should be allowed to receive welfare benefits, social security numbers, driver's licenses, things like that are usually for American citizens?
I think that as long as they are on the path to citizenship, it is perfectly okay under the DACA program. And the other point that I wanted to say...
But DACA does not provide a path to citizenship.
Has never been...
It's a temporary fix.
Yes, as they are on the path to regular...
Barack Obama said in his speech about DACA when he first implemented it that it's not a permanent fix and it's not a path to citizenship. So why, if they're not getting a path to citizenship, why is it fair that they are getting all the benefits?
that-
And there are
Stepping stone.
40,000 people that have gotten their green cards, and that's the hardest part of becoming a citizen. So those 40,000 people are not at risk right now because they were proactive and they took that action.
But
And I know
they're-
it's difficult, but it's
It's
doable.
not impossible.
And there
Yeah,
are
and it's not
thousands
supposed to be easy.
You know what
to
I
be a
really
citizen.
take issue with, I think, here is that you're drawing a line between kids who have grown up in America as U.S. citizens and then these DACA recipients oftentimes who grew up oftentimes until the age they were 18 not knowing they were undocumented. So it's as if you're saying they've committed a crime when in reality they didn't even know they were committing a crime.
As adults, many of these people did know that they were committing a crime, and
Some
many
of
of them have lived here over 10 years
Some
as
of them
adults.
are as old as 37,
yeah,
and
just
that
because-
is, if you don't consider that an adult who's been living here, then I don't.
And just because you don't know you're committing a crime, that doesn't excuse it. It's not. It's an
But these
illegal
were
crime.
These were
Children.
children.
They're not
But they're not
children
children
anymore.
today.
They're not children
Not-
anymore.
that's why there
they
has to be a
receive
That's why they're
That's
applying
not
for DACA
100%
status.
true.
That's why
They were
they
able-
are trying to become
they were-
citizens. That's why they're staying in this country to work, because they are
But
adults and they want
DACA,
to
But
is,
DACA is a
DACA
temporary
does
fix.
not allow you
DACA
to
allowed
apply
them so
for
far. They
citizenship.
have been allowed to be in this country and they have been working. They have received benefits, but that's where it ends. President Trump has decided that it's ending, and they've had their chance to try to get green cards. They've had their chance. There are people waiting legally to come into this country, and they're not getting a chance because the DACA people are cheating the system.
And the people that did get their green cards are not at risk today because they were proactive for themselves.
Do you know how long it takes to get a green card on average? Do you
No.
know? It's like oftentimes an expensive process that takes at least 10 years
Yeah.
for somebody without a criminal record who came
It's
in
not
here
supposed to
and
be
knowingly-
easy to
not
become a
supposed to be
citizen
easy.
here.
It's a crime to come into
So
this
you're
country
turning
illegally.
down these young immigrants.
They're not young anymore.
There are other people that are trying to
That
take
is
the
a
totally
young
legal
adult.
path.
They are
And
productive members of
They are
our
adding
society.
to the U.S. economy under the DACA program.
All the people waiting
working
want
legally.
to come to this country. They want to work. They want to
Yeah,
fend
they're
for
doing it
themselves.
completely legally.
They want to be able to work. They have waited, and the DACA people are cheating the system by just coming to this country. They came to this country maybe unknowingly, but they came illegally.
And giving DACA is basically giving amnesty to all of these crimes committed, and it's almost like sending a message to the other people who may want to immigrate to this country, saying, "Oh, we're just going to give you amnesty even though you committed a crime."
It's not amnesty,
It's not
it's
a-
temporary.
It's
It's
not a general
rewarding-
amnesty at all, because DACA, it is hard to apply for DACA. You need to meet a certain
It's
amount
not as
of
difficult
Almost
as
more than
criteria.
there
You
are more
have to
than
be-
500,000
you have-
people
there
have
are
received
several
it. So
requirements.
Well,
But
And
there's
many people
630
get
million
rejected.
people in the U.S.
amnesty is legal forgiveness of a crime. So by forgiving these people for coming to this country,
Allowing them to
illegally,
stay.
It's temporary.
That's what
You're not-
amnesty is, though.
But
So what do you
That's-
think
it's-
should happen
it's
now?
declared- It is
Because
amnesty.
if you're saying that amnesty is forgiving a crime. It's not completely forgiving a crime. It's saying you have 2 years
It's
to
rewarding these people for coming
It's
here
giving them
illegally.
2 extra
These
years
illegal
to try.
aliens
and
came
many of them
here.
who
It's not-
stay here
well,
more
a
than
lot
2
of-
years.
a lot
well,
of
then
the
they'll
elite-
reapply for DACA.
That's the problem.
And it's less expensive than
they're
going
It's
through
not
the whole
supposed
process
to be
of
renewed and
immigration.
renewed and renewed and renewed. It's a temporary fix.
But
And
if
these
these-
people have reaped benefits of our country for years and years and years.
And they're
that
also
was
giving back
temporary.
a lot.
Action has
They're-
been deferred.
What about
They're
people who
using-
want to give back? What about the other people? These people
What
came
about
here
the jobless
illegally.
Americans and those in other countries who want
They're
to come
being-
here legally?
They're being rewarded for committing crimes.
We're not saying that these people, they're most often under like 6 years old when they come here.
It's
so
not
they're
personal.
they're not thinking, oh, you know what, I'm going to go and commit a crime. Their parents are bring them to the United States. And so
Yes, but they've been adults for years.
Also,
and
a
it's
lot
not
of
a
their
personal situation. They're 6
they are not children
to come into this
anymore. As
country.
soon as you turn 18 and you do not make any change, that's a crime.
how do you know they're not making change?
Well,
Because
if
And
they
there's
only
haven't.
40,000
They keep
people
renewing DACA.
have gotten green cards.
Well, DACA has only been in place for 6 years, and as Caitlin said earlier, it can take 10 years to get a green card. So these people may be making progress and may be making moves towards citizenship, but because of our government system and because of how hard it is to become a citizen.
It's not supposed to be easy, and 40,000 have
So
been
you're
able to do
saying
it.
you'd
That's a
rather the
large
U.S.
proportion.
economy would take a hit and actual Americans would lose their jobs than
why
It
would
wouldn't
our-
take
why
a
would
hit.
actual
Those
Americans
jobs would
lose
be
their jobs
these,
by
these
immigrants
undocumented
leaving?
immigrants, sometimes
supporting
they
the
are
economy.
business owners. They can be self-made. They can create jobs just by being
But
here.
that
and
is
by
a
Not
selling
all of
very
them are
their
doing
small small
many of
portion.
them
So
are
what about
working
the
below the
larger
minimum
portion
wage.
who are taking
Well, there's a
the
lot,
jobs?
small portion of
from-
Americans too who are self-made business owners.
I'm sorry, why? I'm confused. Why is that relevant?
Because these DACA people, some of them are coming here and creating jobs, and yes, some of them may be working for other people who are legal American citizens, but there's a lot of Americans too who aren't creating their own jobs, they're just working for other people. So if DACA recipients are coming to this country and making jobs for American citizens,
I don't
think
think
they
it's
should
a
be allowed to
correct
stay.
characterization of these people that they are producing jobs and starting businesses. The vast majority of them are not doing that, and many of them are working below the minimum wage and causing decreased wages
Most of
for
them
Americans.
don't even have a college education.
Actually, I'd like to bring something up. So, are you familiar with the blog Humans of New York?
No.
Run by Brandon Stanton. It's basically a photo blog through social media that depicts just like the daily lives of people on the streets of New York City. And something interesting was he did a series on DACA recipients, and there was a young woman who said, I was on a leadership team in 5th grade. At the end of the year, we were supposed to take a trip to Washington, D.C. We held fundraisers and everything. But when it was time to go, I didn't have the identification papers to buy a plane ticket. So our teacher, Miss Rivera, decided that we take a bus, just so I could go too. That trip changed my life. It made me want to be a lawyer. And Miss Rivera became one of the closest people in my life. When it came time to apply to college, Miss Rivera was the one who helped me apply for DACA. She told me about the Dream.US scholarship. I didn't even want to apply. I was ready to give up. I just accepted that I'd always work in restaurants like my mom. But Miss Rivera made me apply.
Not everyone,
And now she's going to law school.
not everyone has that story, but that is an example of people that have benefited from being in our country. But DACA was not supposed to be a permanent fix, and it can't
it's
be.
not.
I never
so
said
that
it was a
happens-
permanent
I
fix.
understand your story about the woman who was a success story, but there are many stories of people who have been waiting. There's a 45-year-old British woman who asked not to be identified in this, but she has been waiting 4 years for a green card and still doesn't have it. And she's seeing these people thriving in the United States through DACA, that it's encouraging illegal immigration, and rather than why would she wait years and years and years to come into the country when all these people are allowed to come in illegally and they're getting the
And I
benefits
can
from it?
understand that frustration that that woman is feeling, but I think that the key difference between those kinds of stories is that this woman has her family, presumably in whatever country she's from, and these DACA kids.
Before you said that they probably didn't have any family in other countries, so it would be hard for them to go back. But now you're saying that they probably do. So what's
you didn't
the
let me
problem
finish
there?
my point. I just wanted to finish saying that the DACA kids oftentimes have grown up in the United States as normal Americans, barely even knowing that they were undocumented. So it's not like they're trying to get into somewhere. It's they're trying to stay and then trying to apply for a green card
But
and gain U.S. citizenship.
why is that the government's job to fix that? Children didn't know they were immigrants.
It's a humanitarian issue, and it boosts
where
our
does
People
it end?
already have gotten green cards. It's not supposed to be easy, and it has been doable. And now, for the people that haven't, there has to be a change.
And where does
But we're not
DACA end? Because if you're gonna say, well, they've been successful, DACA needs to continue. These people should be allowed to stay here. Well, it's just a continuous loop. And DACA, these people, they apply for DACA and they receive it. And then 2 years later they apply, they continue receiving it, and they get welfare benefits. They get all these benefits. They are allowed to get jobs. And why it doesn't stop there. If they're not committing a crime, nobody's going after them, and they're allowed to stay here illegally. DACA does not provide a path to citizenship, so it's not a successful program in the United States, because those recipients aren't furthering their citizenship by being here, and there are people waiting responsibly and legally.
Well, would you support DACA if it provided more of a path to citizenship?
That is a legislative issue.
And we're
though.
not saying it's a perfect program. We're not saying that we can't change it and add things to it. But we're simply saying that these children and young adults don't deserve to be deported for not doing anything except for being born in a different country.
But it's
And
a gradual
there-
deportation.
Congress only allocates a certain amount of funds towards immigration programs to deport immigrants. It's estimated that Congress only gives the money to the U.S. Department of Immigration Services to deport about 400,000 immigrants a year. And this allows immigrant services like ICE to focus on dangerous immigrants who are committing crimes, who are a threat to society at large, because we can only deport a certain amount of them.
So off of that, if Kirsten Nielsen of the Department of Homeland Security stated that if DACA ends completely, deferring these deporting these DACA recipients is not going to be a priority for them. So it's not, they'll probably have years here.
Then
So
how
it's
is
not
that
like
making-
they're going
you
to
guys
be.
are saying that it's making people
We're
encouraged to
not-
stay. So if
No, we're
they-
not
if
saying
you're
that. We're
We're
saying
not-
it's encouraging illegal act.
It's going to be
illegal action.
gradual. They're going to
because-
have time.
But these people were kids when they were brought here, so
They're not
were-
kids anymore, though.
Well, they
Yeah.
were, and you're
But they're
saying
not
but
kids
if
anymore.
you're saying that they're not kids anymore, so they should leave, then but you just said that deporting them is not going to be a priority.
Yeah, so
It
that
isn't
the
a
point there
priority.
is it will happen eventually, but it's not going to be a priority
It's not
because
like
the
they're being
dangerous
sent
are. So
back.
they're going to
There's
have
not like they're
time
being
to
sent back
figure
to
out
nothing.
what
And
they
like
need to
Caitlin
do.
said, many of
And-
them have family back
And
where
you're
they're
making
from.
it a personal story about
Actually,
these
that's
children.
kind of the opposite of what I was saying. I was saying that people who've grown up in other countries trying to get into the country legally, like the woman's story you brought up, is different than being born here, where your whole family, or being born in a different country, and your whole family being brought to the United States.
It's
and
not
feeling
that
like
whole
whole
family.
family.
Coming in illegally.
And
These
actually,
people have
if
family in
you're,
other
if you're
countries.
born here, you're
Punishing-
technically a citizen, and then that encourages chain migration, which is a whole nother subject, which can also be a product of DACA. Like, if there are people who get citizenship through DACA, chain migration can occur, and then
That can encourage more illegal.
Well, you
More
don't gain
legal immigrants
citizenship
to
through
come.
DACA, but I get what you're saying.
yes, but you can it just gets more people coming. Where does it end? Like the case about D.A.C.A, which is for parents, it was ruled unconstitutional by an appellate court, and by them ruling that unconstitutional, DACA, some parts of DACA could be unconstitutional as well because it is it's not within the powers of the president to make a permanent solution, which it wasn't, which is why DACA is allowed. But there needs to be a permanent fix, and DACA is not the solution.
So from here, let's move on to another question. Do you think that this issue of DACA, these children, do you think it can be described as a moral issue?
Absolutely. It's a
But
humanitarian
I think
issue.
that it may be a moral issue, but that's not the role of American government, is to be sympathetic towards these illegal immigrants. I think it needs to focus on its own. I mean, it may sound harsh and cruel, but I don't think that's the job of the government to try to protect these illegal immigrants.
Yeah, there's so many people struggling in this country. Why are we focusing on the immigrants problem? They came here illegally. There's so many more problems with this country that the government should focus on, and we should deal with immigration, but not morally, because that's not the role of the government. The government should be helping through congressional action. They should be dealing with immigration and not look at all the DACA recipients morally.
And I think that for DACA, that what it's simply acknowledging that these young adults committed a crime oftentimes unknowingly, and they're giving them a temporary stepping stone to figure out their lives. So,
But
like I
many
said
of them
earlier,
believe
had,
should happen
like,
now?
10 years to figure out their lives, and DACA was simply a Band-Aid, so in the next 2 years they weren't going to be deported and maybe be able to work and not fear.
And those who have
but
kept
after their
renewing
2
have
years are
abused
over,
it.
then they're just going to keep continuing that cycle.
But those 10 years were years without DACA, where these people were afraid to come forward to get citizenship because they were afraid if they
illegal.
revealed their status, they would be deported from this country.
But they were
now
illegal.
we are
They were
providing.
illegal immigrants.
You argue that DACA isn't a path to citizenship, but I think that it is actually, because it's allowing these illegal immigrants.
it's
not
allowing
right
them
now.
to stay
It's
here.
allowing them to
illegally.
pursue citizenship.
When
It's
DACA-
allowing
But many of them
to become
have
members
chosen
of our
not to.
society.
Many of them have
productive
chosen not
members.
to go towards citizenship and just rely on DACA, and now that's coming to an end, and they're all coming out saying,
How do you know
Yeah,
that,
that's
how do
what I
you know
was
that
gonna
people
say.
are just not caring about getting citizenship?
well, because only about
Yeah, but that-
40,000 have gotten their
said
green
many
cards
times
out of
that
the
getting
more
It's
than
not
half a
supposed to
billion.
be an
Green
easy
card
process.
takes
And
a very,
it's
very
not
long
supposed
time.
to be
Again,
easy.
But
If
it's
you-
taking a very long
Again,
time.
but they may have been waiting, but they are in this country. They have been in this country for 6
and
years.
they're supporting
as
the
of
U.S.
DACA.
economy by working
And you're
legally.
But
punishing
what
them
about
for
all the
Americans
people?
don't
What
have
about the
those
people
jobs,
that
the
are
people
waiting? You
overseas.
you can't forget the people that have been waiting
And
for
it's
citizenship and
possible
haven't gotten any benefits.
It's possible to wait for DACA, or not wait for DACA, wait for citizenship, maybe if you're going to get it, out of our country, like they can go and maybe
Yeah.
support their economy.
They have
or
nothing.
They
in
have
other
people
countries.
they've reaped the benefits of
They
our
came-
country,
they
and
came here
people
with
that are
nothing.
trying to do this legally
They came
cannot.
here as children and had nothing.
Their parents were able to come here with nothing, so why can't they, as adults, maybe around the same age as their parents, go back to their country and start a life?
Or
for
just
You're
themselves?
unrealistic.
you're punishing them for a crime that they didn't commit. They were children.
They
A
committed it
3-year-old
as adults.
A 3-year-old cannot.
They were not-
conscientiously
They're not
decide.
3-year-olds.
They
These
were
are
not-
adults. Many of them
Well, some
in their
people
late
pursue
30s.
DACA status, like the person that Caitlin mentioned. As soon as they turn 18, as soon as they are allowed to become
so
a legal
they can wait
citizen.
just as every other person coming from another country has waited for their turn. And these people, unlike the people waiting, they have not. The DACA people have received rewards for because
DACA
of
recipients
DACA.
have built their lives in America. They oftentimes didn't know that they were there illegally.
That is
Because
a- that's
action
a
was
moral
deferred,
issue,
they
though. It's not-
benefited from our country.
And I think that it's important for our U.S. government to acknowledge that it's not always their fault if they committed a crime unknowingly.
They did forgive
especially
them.
as children.
They forgave. The government forgave the DACA children for coming here, but now these children are adults.
and they stayed here legally
and-
as adults.
And if they're not becoming citizens, then the government can't see the
Well,
progress.
what if the
the
majority of them are
path-
trying to and it doesn't show in the numbers?
And they just haven't
Then
had
they can
time
just
because
wait.
DACA
There's
is
no
only
evidence
6
that
years
that's
old.
true.
They don't need to be waiting here in America for their citizenship.
And again, as we said before, they are not the priority of being deported immediately.
Yeah.
So they are waiting here.
They
for
will
their
have
citizenship.
time.
But then you're saying that by allowing them to wait to be deported, they are staying here illegally and they're staying here without
But
DACA.
it's
But
just
they'll
an
have time.
unrealistic.
They're
and
not
they
getting
don't have a
sent
path
home
to
on a plane
citizenship
the
if they are
next
not
It's an
here legally.
unrealistic expectation to talk about deportation happening the next day. Obviously, it's not going to. It's going to be a gradual deportation. The people are not a priority, so they're not going to be
And
sent
the
on
people
planes the
who
next
have
day.
green cards have built their own path, and today they're not at risk. And it is doable. I know it's expensive, that not every dreamer could, but it's not supposed to be easy to become an American citizen.
And those
And a
people
lot
that
of
have
people that
paid-
can are oftentimes very privileged. Over 90% of the people that are DACA recipients are from Latin America, and they face discrimination.
some of those
as
people
DACA
have
You're
gotten
saying
green
because
cards.
they've come here illegally that they face the most harsh background or whatever.
No, I'm saying that people, oftentimes European immigrants that are receiving green cards, have it easier than people coming from Mexico and countries where there are high concentrations of DACA recipients in the United States.
Why?
Well, you were
but I-
arguing earlier that these people didn't even know that they were DACA recipients or didn't know
Exactly.
they were illegal.
Yeah, a lot of them
So
don't.
how could they
I know.
face discrimination?
discrimination? I'm talking about racial discrimination.
Okay. But
So what I'm saying is that these people, you're trying to say, oh, let's level the playing field by saying because these people have a hard time getting green cards, these people shouldn't be allowed to stay in our country. But in life, the reality is just that not everything is a level playing field. These people ended up in the United States, built their lives here, and you're saying we should throw them out for being hardworking people that are trying to gain legal residency.
by applying for DACA, they knew that there was a temporary fix and that they would
Applying for
they were
DACA
supposed to
also
take
makes-
action to make change themselves, and they
Yeah.
haven't,
And
and that's why they're at
How
risk
do you know
now.
that they haven't? What if they're waiting to hear back for their interview or for this or for that?
Then
with
why do they-
immigration?
why do they need
Thousands
to
and
wait
thousands have
in
not
America?
done anything.
And
They cannot go back to a place that is not their home. It is expensive
Their
to
parents
immigrate.
came here without it being their home. They came here
It is
illegally.
expensive to leave the country. If they leave the country now, they might not have the funds to go back, and that way we're just kicking people
But-
who are
and that
productive
hurts
members
our
of
economy.
society
why
out
do
of our
those
country.
people matter more than the people that are waiting? They're they
Then
were
why
given.
why don't we make it easier to get a green card if you're waiting legally?
Okay.
And
I'm not
also
arguing against
providing
that.
a path to citizenship for under 700,000 people would encourage more legal immigration and chain migration. Those people who, if DACA recipients got citizenship, they could sponsor their parents to come here, which is just playing the system totally.
So are you just against immigration?
No.
Like,
The-
I
This
don't
is
understand.
not
we are
legal.
against illegal immigration,
This is not
and this
legal.
has been determined. Like the president has determined that DACA will not continue because it's not something that the government supports. And what the government does support is congressional action to advance legal immigration. DACA
Yes.
not being legal.
There's some reasons for people to leave their countries, like their families to leave the countries, that are not something that you can just be like, oh, I'll wait 10 years.
But there's people that left their countries for the same exact reasons, maybe, but are going about this legally. So it's not
Okay, well,
about
there's
a moral
also- there's
story about
someone-
one family or
No,
a few
there's people that
families.
are facing domestic violence, and
There are people that are it works the
Now,
same
guys,
for
I am
legal
loving
immigration.
this debate. This is going fantastically, but unfortunately, we're just about out of time, so we'll have to hold our discussion there. Again, we invite you, our viewers, to email us your thoughts and suggestions about today's topic so we can continue this discussion in our government classroom. We'd like to thank Nauset High School's television production class and Lower Cape TV for making this valuable experience possible for all of us. That concludes another segment of We the Students, a political discussion sponsored by Nauset Regional High School's AP U.S. Government and Politics program. I'm Dylan McCarthy. Thanks for watching.